Hello, clients, and thank you for joining us here for the Better Call Saul After Show, Season 3, Episode 9, Fall. You better call us.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AFTERBUZZ TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
It's nice and chill here. It's 10 p.m. at AFTERBUZZ TV, and we're here to talk about Better Call Saul.
It's the time.
I'm your host, Steve Kaufmann. You can find me on Twitter at Steve Kaufmann. That is Kaufmann. We are not at full strength tonight.
We're not.
I have not gotten explanations from our co-hosts, but I feel like both of them are E3 related.
E3 related.
They're E3 related. I think
I don't want to speculate, but
that feels likely for both Rich and Lucretia, who are not with us. They will be with us next week, or it's their loss, to be very honest.
They better be
Season
with us.
finale next week. But Nate is here.
That's right. What's going on, guys? Nate Miller. You can find me on social media at DogLikeNate. And yeah, Steve and I are here to break down this episode.
We're breaking this down. We're bringing the energy, the attitude.
That's right.
All the things
necessary.
I like this episode. I
did too.
I like the way this show moves, and I've spoken about it before, that this show tends to kind of have the typical season arc in the middle of their seasons.
I've been thinking a lot about that, especially after watching this episode, because I watched the first season like weekly, and then the next two seasons I waited until they were on Netflix and I binged them. Mm-hmm. So going back again and watching it weekly, I definitely noticed the kind of roller coaster effect throughout the season.
I would say if you really mapped out, we're on the 29th episode, if you really mapped out the 29 episodes, their whole seasons, as we would understand them traditionally in television, are episode 5 to episode 5.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But I guess that would mean that they spent five whole weeks kind of getting into this world, which someone let me know if I'm way off here. But like the pace of this show seems completely different from any other show, and I think there's something to be had about.
Well, it's just that it has the same upside that Breaking Bad had, in that, you know, it's a story and there's an end in mind, and they're working towards a goal, you know.
Very
that
much.
You know, it may not be 100% set in stone, but it's more or less decided. So having that capability lets you, once you have an end, it lets you go, then you can just continue to go back to the beginning and cross over and over again, and that's where you get all these layers. You don't get that with something when you're just trying to extend the life, because there's no end, so you never reach the end to go back and review, because you're constantly trying to create.
And while we're on the macro portion, I do really love that this show doesn't fall into the trap its premise could lead itself to. I call it the Wolverine paradox, which is a character lives and dies, and the A and the B that we actually follow them, it's the most interesting portion of their lives, is not live and die. We learned that with Wolverine in the 3 prequels to Wolverine, or 2. Sorry, the 2. Logan was great. That like, at least I've learned that you don't always need to see every moment of a character's life, but they're not falling into that trope here. They're showing us specifically all the interesting things that happened to Saul and happened around Saul.
Yeah, I agree. I think you're getting just enough character exposition to kind of give the characters dimensions. But again, there's really no filler. And even what the episodes that kind of like feel like filler, more just so because they're kind of like lulls, they all serve a purpose. And especially when you go back and rewatch, there's a lot of lines and things to pick up on that it's kind of like, oh, if I was paying attention, I would have seen this coming.
And it also stands to reason that Jimmy's one character in a very big show at this point.
Yeah.
And I think that's really how they get away from the Wolverine paradox, is that they're moving slow in general, and then they're moving really slow with Jimmy to make him be Saul.
I mean, even starting off the top, just how like last episode's week was called Slip, and then this one's called Fall, and just like, again, the way they encapsulate kind of just the overall theme of the episode, and kind of how like even with each kind of like plot point that happened this episode, they all kind of fit into that like falling, you know, theme. It's really cool how they did that.
So speaking of falling, Chuck has fallen from grace at HHM.
Yeah, not gracefully either.
He did. He lost a lot of stock with Howard internally.
Oh, for sure.
But it's what it's the insurers that made him lose stock externally, and now Howard wants to force him out.
I think Howard has already been like struggling with trying to justify keeping him around and having him on and all that stuff, but especially after the outburst, I think he knew that he was going to react that way, and he wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt to see what would happen. But of course, after he had that reaction, he had to have the talk that I think he's been waiting to have, but has been trying to like push it off.
He's been very well prepared for that talk. I think had the insurance thing not happened, he would have hopefully grown with Chuck, actually, because Chuck was getting better, has been getting a lot better, that I think it makes complete sense.
But I still think like the logic there is still, you know, there's still a certain amount of time that has already passed that can't be recouped, that he has not been there. So like it's like, I think Howard knows that he should have done this for a long time, but because he does respect Chuck so much and you know how influential he was, he doesn't want to do this, but now he's like backed into a corner. And I think that really shows in the way he reacts. I loved Howard this episode. Like, it was so cool seeing especially him and Chuck face off because they're such strong personalities. But you can see like he's just had enough. He's like, look, I gave you so much rope and you've hung yourself, and look, I did my best, and look, I'm not gonna like let all this stuff go down because you have this big ego thing. Like they said double the insurance rate for the whole firm for everyone. That's crazy. We knew it was gonna be high, but that's crazy.
Truth be told, I feel like I missed it in the scene, or it might have been implied. That's double if Chuck stays on.
Right.
That if he stays. If Chuck leaves, it'll still be more, because they still have to insure any case Chuck touched, but it wouldn't be double. That's what I've been saying, that I thought they would straight up just cut a deal with Howard and cut Chuck out, but that was also when I thought Chuck wasn't functioning. Because 2 weeks ago, Chuck was not functioning at all. Like, I think everyone talked about how slow the show moves. Like, 2 weeks ago, Chuck was not functioning.
Yeah, he's definitely moved.
Had a space blanket in the middle of the street.
It was when Howard gets the letter, obviously, that he's decided that he's going to sue them, which I can't wait to see.
Oh yes.
But when he shows up at the door and comes in, and he's like, "You have the lights on," and I was waiting for when he left for Chuck to go, ugh, because and he did. Like, he's better, but he's not. Yeah, he definitely was playing it up. Yeah, and I don't know. There's both sides. But I really liked Howard. It was really cool to see him. Just kind of like, he's so reserved all the time, and in this episode especially, I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but him and Jimmy too.
Oh, the him and Jimmy was great, and we'll get to that in a second. While we're lulling Raphael in the chat, quick shout out, thanks for joining us in the chat. You can join us in the chat live. We're live here at AfterBuzz TV.
Welcome to the party.
Otherwise, like, rate, subscribe, all the things. If you're listening to my voice,
5 stars
helps us do all the things.
Smash the like button.
Or press it gently. I'm not going to tell you what to. I'm not going to tell you the force in which.
No gentle liking.
I'm not going to tell you the force in which you hit the like button. Tuco is here today. Tuco, Hector, Gus,
Nacho.
Yep. We had that. I was like, I'm not going to mess this up, and totally messed it up.
It's okay. Nacho. Yes. I was like, I don't know. I was surprised that, like, I was expecting us to just go straight to like him, to what's his name? Wow. Now you got me dropping names.
I'm bringing it.
The older Salamanca.
Hector?
Yes,
Hector.
I thought we were gonna just go right into him, like, already being in the hospital or something.
And I think that the plan should have been clear, but once again, the show moves a little fast. He pitched the plan 3 weeks ago, and we finally saw it. Finally saw it come into fruition last week. He was replacing the pills with ibuprofen. So whatever he's taking,
that was a practice.
No, whatever he didn't put poison in the pills. That was never the plan. The plan was to put ibuprofen in the pills. So instead of the effect of the pills actually helping him and saving his life,
he would just actually have a heart attack.
He slowly works towards having a heart attack. The key is to swap them out. That we didn't quite get there. We didn't quite get there last week because it was a bit. like I noticed that when he mashed up ibuprofen,
Yeah, I was thinking like, how is that gonna kill him? But that makes sense. Just trying to draw him out because he usually goes for the medicine when he's already having a heart issue, which he has a lot of heart issues. Yeah,
instead of taking it as prescribed. That makes sense.
A great little crime meeting scene with Hector and Gus and the phone, and that little smirk that he gave him, and then like it was just like barely there, and just the way he delivers those lines of like, no, this is not what I wanted on Hector, and it's just so like,
I actually believe him.
I don't.
I believe him in the sense of, I don't think he wants to work under a cartel at all.
No, there's no way.
I think he wants to run the drug game. Like, I think he straight up wants to run the drug game.
Well, I mean, I definitely think he has aspirations for more, but I think at this point, I don't think there's a way that he does what he does at all without the cartel. You can't it's either one cartel or another. So I don't think it's the cartel as much as it's just.
I think he wants to run his own cartel and not deal with the cartel, but I think he'd much rather. As we learn in Breaking Bad, he eventually takes down the cartel.
In regards to Hector, I think this is part of Gus's plan. I think it's 100% felt like a victory for him. And just seeing Hector blow up, of course, like we knew he would, like a child. I'm curious to see what's going to happen because I'm sure that he's going to try to do something.
Well, both theories are still active right now of how Hector winds up in a wheelchair.
We'll have to see.
This could be by Gus's hand, or this could be by Gus's hand, or it could actually be the plan. Well, then we also
have like the thing with Nacho and his dad too, and what's going to happen when Hector comes to the shop. Obviously, Nacho's dad didn't take it very well.
Ooh, it could just be the dad.
Yeah.
That dad looks like a stand your ground kind of person. Stand your ground at all costs kind of person.
It's happening, like a tussle goes wrong or something.
But a tussle goes wrong, he like cracks his back on a machine or something. Yeah. I'm not going to border on predictions, but that seems likely. But I enjoy, we didn't get much of them this week. There's not a whole lot to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, that scene with Nacho talking to his dad I thought was really good. I imagine Nacho as a guy who knows that he's doing bad, but maybe feels it's necessary, or like, he's one of those bad guys that you kind of like. But it was a little bit heartbreaking to see him like coming to his dad and having to be honest with him, not because he wanted to share with him what he was doing, but because out of safety, out of him not wanting his dad to be killed because of things that he's involved in. So I thought that was a little heartwarming to see him, trying to open up and relate to his dad. Of course, it's sad that his dad I don't think he's going to listen.
No. Yeah, he's strikes me as
just in a tough spot.
Not just in a really tough spot, and I love that we know where all these characters wound up, but we're still fascinated and on the edge of our seats about next week.
I mean, it's like, art imitates lives. It's people's lives. People have multiple lives within their lifetimes. You meet someone, you get to know them over the course of a couple of years, then one day they tell you about something, and it's like, wow, you had like a whole nother life, before I even met you. And so this is what we're seeing is like this whole other life that Saul had as Jimmy before he even started doing any of this stuff that we see later in Breaking Bad. So
that happens a lot when I tell people I used to be a casino security guard. They'd make that face. We're like, wait, what?
I could see that.
You have a whole...
I could actually see that. It's not a surprise at all.
It's not the surprise. It's the...
But it's a lot of stories. It comes from left field.
That's a lot of stories I have not heard from you, Steve.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a gold mine there.
A little bit. We have a lot of possible Emmy voters who listen to this show. It's about that time of year. It's the For Your Consideration season.
That's right.
A&E has something they want us to tell you about. It's called Born This Way. Last season on the Emmy-winning show Born This Way, 7 young adults with Down syndrome blew critics away. The co-creator of Homeland, Alec Ganza, was inspired and said Born This Way got him thinking about responsibility in television and made him ask, what message should we be putting out into the world? This season, the cast continues to defy expectations and set new standards of the world for the world of television. Born This Way, for your Emmy consideration. Watch the new episodes Tuesdays at 10 on A&E.
I'll have to check that out.
I checked it out a little today. It's a good show.
It sounds really powerful.
Yes. I don't have a good transition from powerful.
I don't.
I should. Madrigal is powerful in the Breaking Bad world. That's the best I got.
Close.
It was close.
It was close.
It was real close, but we get this little piece with Madrigal Automotive.
Right.
Which seems like a bit of a smaller conglomerate now than it becomes when we meet them again in Breaking Bad.
I wonder.
But it stands to reason because Los Pollos Hermanos is already a franchised store in Better Call Saul, so it's probably already a subsidiary of Madrigal. Because Madrigal becomes just a giant thing that runs 14 freighters and has like 114,000 employees. But I do like this just old school Mike of like, I understand what you think you're doing, Lydia, but what are you like?
Well, I think Mike is just, I mean, like you said, very old school, but Mike is also, I think Mike doesn't have like as firm of a grasp on the situation as he thinks he does. I think he thinks that Gus is more rooted into...
Well, because Gus is the atypical drug dealer. When you think of a drug dealer, when you think of drug dealer or the drug game, you're actually thinking of Hector. You're actually thinking of the Salamanca cartel.
Yeah, but I think he's thinking that he's like, this is what she does. Like, this is a business that they just use to help legitimize money or whatever. And like, this is just like how he is like a cleaner, like this is what they do, they clean up money or whatever. So he's not thinking of it as like this is a newer partnership that Gus is just creating, and Gus is still building his empire of networks of people to deal with and stuff, and this is the first time that this has happened. Like, that's all that's like the last thing that I think he would think of. So he's trying to figure out what's the catch, what's the angle. He's trying to figure out where the game is, because usually when you have some type of operation like that running over a certain amount of time, the longer it runs, the more likely you're to get caught. So that's why he's like, well, don't put my name on the books. When A, B, and C of all these people have come through here to clean up their money, then someone comes to look, catches those people, catches me too, whatever.
I also think he doesn't quite understand. And we learn at the very end where Lydia tells him, like, if all you think Gustavo Fring is a drug dealer, and I mean, she says it in a way and with a look that it's like, I think there's a certain level of Gustavo Fring that's always been unspoken, that he's not just a shrewd businessman and a guy who deals drugs. I think he's, to a certain extent, someone who assumes there's a line, and once you cross it, you're subhuman. And he's doing something to just try to wipe out all the subhumans.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely sense
very
some
crudely said, but
from him. Yeah, no, I know. In his own way, he's doing good, he thinks.
He's doing good by letting by profiting off of bad people doing what bad people will do anyway. And in his own mind, making less bad things happen.
I'm curious if we get some type of explanation from her of what she thinks he is, because I read it as her having some type of personal connection or something with him, and him as a man being more than just a drug dealer. Because in terms of business, I'm pretty sure essentially he's a drug dealer. He's a crime lord. Yeah,
but I think she sees him as more than just a businessman or a drug dealer, in the sense that she sees him as a community leader.
Right, I get that.
As a community leader, as someone who's literally making everything better.
I want to hear her argument.
I would love to hear her
because
argument.
Because I definitely got that kind of a sense. I just think that argument is a little bit weak. I think that's a little bit of a stretch. So to me, that reads as something of like, she has some type of personal connection with him. He helped her out, or a family, or a kid, or something like that.
I could see
and
it
so
that
that's
way
why
too.
she's like, oh, he's more than that. He's he as like a person or whatever. Because from a pragmatic standpoint, I think a drug dealer is a pretty good title, unless the other angle is it's not an emotional thing. It's like a actual like real thing. He is involved in a lot more than just drug dealing, like illegal imports, or getting things across the border, or things of that nature, some other illegal business. Maybe that's what she's talking about. Like, it's a bigger empire than that.
I think it's all the things we said. It's probably all the things we've said.
Some combination.
Because I think the fact that I wouldn't be shocked if she was low ranking at Madrigal and he came in with his logistics and shot her to the moon, and she has that connection with him, but also sees a level of complete genius in him. And maybe I'm grasping at straws with the sociological part. But maybe
hopefully
I'm not.
We'll find out.
Hopefully we'll find out. I would not be shocked if the character of Gustavo Fring was like this weird classist.
But it was cool. It was good to see some Mike, as always. We got a really nice shot there where he's reading the contract, and you get it's like an upward shot of his face through the glass of the desk. Was really nice. And I'm really hoping that this is going to be leading into setup for the finale of him doing some badass shit for Gus, because we still don't know what his side of the deal is.
Yeah, it's got to be.
He's going to be doing something.
It's got to be worth like $30,000.
A considerable amount.
It's like $30,000 worth of work, because that's what Gus put up.
So we'll see, and I'm assuming it has something to do with the whole Hector blowing up, because Gus had to know that was coming, and had to know that Hector would respond that way, because it's Gus. So
yeah, I'm sure. And I think, actually, to bring it back to Hector, I think Gus needs to play the role of, I had no idea this was going to happen. I was serving at the Great Bolsa and the cartel. He has made this choice, not myself. So to keep playing that, if he needs stuff to get messed up even more, he needs Mike to do it.
Yeah, he needs a third party.
Yeah, he needs Mike to do it, and he needs Mike to do it in a way where where it's just like these things happen. Like anything like that. So let's head on back to HHM, where our boy Jimmy McGill needs some money.
Well, I mean, we got to go to the start with that first, because
he went to Sandpiper Crossing.
Yeah, which is what we see first, which I had, to be completely honest, forgot about completely.
I had forgotten he had a chunk of that settlement, and I think my brain specifically, the show did a good job of explaining how long class actions take. That I kind of pushed it out of my brain, even with Jimmy's financial troubles in the past weeks, where it's like,
and I think that was intentional, because if you know anything about class actions, they take a while forever anyways, like in reality. But they did a good job of explaining it to make it like they didn't leave a lot of clues for it to be like, well, this is still on the table, because when we're reaching that point a few weeks ago where Jimmy's at rock bottom, I was not even thinking about this being an option. So it was really nice to see them come back here and go, oh, I forgot about that. Oh, he has a nice chunk of that. And so when he's going through the letter, he sees the settlement. And this is why, this is the fall, of the plot line is, he games this lady. He plays her. Like, it's bad. Like, and this is an old lady. This is not like some douchebag at the bar who's like being super rude to the Raider. This is a really nice, sweet old lady.
Aaron.
Yeah, and he is.
Or sorry, no, Aaron was the lawyer.
Elaine was her name. It was Liliana
Landry. Irene Landry.
Irene Landry, and that's what it was. Poor Irene tore her friendship apart. Made her cry, and nice old lady.
Do we think the Howard scene was the catharsis for this?
I mean,
that he owned that's who he is. Although that Howard scene was amazing. Like, that Howard scene in general was amazing.
I think this is more a product of him, of what we saw last week with him, the money in the end after he talked to the community service guy. I think this is him more of him kind of accepting slipping Jimmy's song and whatever as like, and I'm just gonna do what I gotta do to make my money. I still think there was a little bit of him trying to like rationalize it, and I think that's part of why he went to Howard and tried to present it in that way. And I'm really glad that Howard came at him the way that he did, because I think then afterwards, I mean, obviously he still went through with it, but I think he was honest with himself at that point of like, I am, he didn't steal from them, but he definitely manipulated the situation.
And like, Jimmy McGill is still not comfortable with that orchestration of like, that was just pretty masterful though.
It was very clever. I was wondering where he was going with the shoes.
He had to have returned all the other shoes, right? There's no way he bought that many shoes.
I thought he was gonna be. At first, I thought he was just gonna scam her and like sell her the shoes and tell her they're like super expensive and sell a bunch of shoes. But then with just the one pair, like, did he really need to buy that many sizes?
He didn't know her size.
I mean, but how many different sizes could her foot be?
A lot, probably.
I'm not a women's shoe expert.
I'm not either.
He had a lot of shoes in there.
I'm not either, and I would probably buy 12 sizes just to be absolutely sure.
I was also a little upset with him with the bingo thing of just calling the numbers like straight in a row. I felt like I would expect him to have a little more subtlety to it and try to like put one or two other numbers kind of in between there to like space it out.
There's no other way to run that scam.
Yeah, I guess because somebody else could win accidentally.
No, if you put magnetic stuff in the balls,
they're always going to come up next.
It's going to be all the magnetic balls are going to fight with each other to go to the net.
Right. Yeah.
That scam only works one way.
Yeah.
It's
just a little too easy.
Well, yeah, super lo-fi. Also, that entire bingo game up until that point didn't have those 4 numbers.
Mm.
So he could just do one quick dump, which I found that really funny too. Rigging bingo, guys. Speaking of bingo, our viewer, his name is Zach Wilson. He told us about a thing on the AMC website called Better Call Saul Bingo, which if you answer enough trivia questions, it gives you exclusive content. This week's exclusive content was a 3-minute short film we watched about half of, which is the family from season 1 that was out camping minus the father, having a picnic on the side of a highway. I didn't see the end. I'm sure it's like I will, but that's quick shout out to Zach Wilson. I think I'm saying that right, for letting us know. That's and right. Also play the Better Call Saul bingo.
That's right.
Exclusive content.
Practice your trivia.
That trivia is kind of hot. Like it's Better Call Saul / Breaking Bad trivia.
Mostly Breaking Bad trivia.
No, it's like half and half, but it's a lot of stuff. I'm trying to think. They never said how much the settlement was. They just said that Saul gets about 1.1.
Yeah,
which would be about he would run it through the business. So he'd probably collect most of it. Like he would run it through that, or I don't know.
Yeah, I mean it'd definitely be enough to get them through.
Oh yeah, I'm just thinking like after taxes. I'm silly.
Yeah,
I always think the take-home pay.
Yeah, I mean. Yeah, it was just rough seeing him, because so many times we've seen him like do things like this, but because of the motivation and stuff, it's like, all right, we're rooting for you, like this is what you got to do. But this one, like I know he needs money, but man, like she's a nice old lady, not even like a mean old lady.
I mean, his rationalization is that once she settles, everybody's nice to her
everybody's
again.
Happy. Yeah, and they'll be friends again, and she's getting paid, they're getting paid, and like otherwise, they drag it out a few years or whatever, and everybody gets a couple $100 more, so they're not really losing much. I get the logic, but I think that's a lot of self-rationalization.
It's a lot of self-rationalization to do a bad thing.
But then also too, we see. Just in how self-absorbed Jimmy is being about the whole thing and like pushing this forward just so he can get the money, because really it is about him, even though he's trying to make it seem like it's not. You see it so much when he comes in and goes to talk to Kim, and he's not even if he stopped for 1 second and looked at his surroundings and paid attention, he would see that she is busy. She's panicking. She's running late. She's got all these things.
There's certain self-centeredness to him in that moment. And he is just completely
oblivious. And she's even trying to tell him, and he's like, no, I don't care. Listen, stop what you're doing. We're doing what I'm doing now, which is like such a self-centered thing to do, which you don't want to do in a relationship, for sure.
I don't know what you're talking about.
But, yeah, it's just... I don't know. It's definitely, I would say fall is a good word for it. I think we're definitely seeing a descent of him going into the darkness. Well, I think this is a step for sure.
This is definitely a huge step where it's just, I did that. Yeah, it's kind of rough. We're down to the Kim of it all. Kim takes a case with Gatwood Oil, as we saw last week. the case seems pretty open and shut for, well, not against a judge, but if you got all the landowners together, that essentially it's on the border of Texas.
Seems like a big if, though, because anytime you have a group of people trying to get them to agree on something, you're just asking for trouble.
Sorry, I just opened up the chat, and I'm like, oh, I've been neglecting the chat this whole time.
Oh, yeah. It looks like definitely could be a good deal for her, but it also looks like it still looks like it's a lot of work, especially for one person. And she's got to prepare one of those presentations for each person that they're got to convince.
And it's just her and Francesca. So what do we think Kim's motivations were? Was she trying to keep up with Jimmy?
Yeah, I think she's trying to just make sure that there's that there's money in the bank and that they're comfortable and they can pay their bills and stuff. And I think she's trying to take care of her, but also Jimmy. That's why I think she felt the need to take on more responsibility than maybe she really should. Because she needs to step up because Jimmy's, struggling. I think that's why. And obviously, as we see, it comes at a cost. Her not getting enough sleep, and she is on her way to the Gatwin meeting running late. Gets in an accident.
As someone who's fallen asleep behind the wheel and got into an accident, that's exactly what it's like.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't had that, but I haven't gotten to a car accident falling asleep, but
you have fallen asleep.
I've dozed off in those scenarios. Where you're so tired and you close your eyes for a second and you open your eyes and time has passed and you don't even realize. And just the way that they edited that was just I've never seen that done that way. It just translated that feeling so well visually. Just the way they cut that, you see her, she just closes her eyes for just a second, and I have to watch it again how they smash cut it together, but just boom.
I meant to go through it, but I wanted to watch that short, but I'm sure you can find the...
Yeah, I'm definitely going to watch it again.
I'm sure you can find the cut if you really look for it.
It just was it took me a while to even realize what was going on. At first I thought it was just a dream, what happened, but just the way they did it.
Oh, no, as someone who's...
And it's just terrifying,
someone who's woken up on a steering wheel, I know exactly what... Yeah. I knew exactly what happened. That her Pontiac Eclipse that I thought was a Grand Am this whole time... slammed into a rock. The rock looked like it saved her life.
Yeah, it looked like it could have got. She could have gone down
like there was a giant ravine.
It looked like she turned left off the road and just
But then it was it looks like she kept going. She fell asleep and kept going straight or veered a little to the left as the road turned right.
Mm-hmm. So she just went right off.
She just hit a rock, and I love that for that extra the trunk opens and then all the papers just fly everywhere.
Yeah, it just adds to it's the worst case scenario, everything else that she's been doing, and now this. Obviously she's not going to make the meeting. I'm glad she's not dead. But I don't know. I'm nervous to see what's going to happen next week too, because I cannot imagine her being really happy with Jimmy already after their last interaction, and with her feeling like she needs to take the responsibility to do all this stuff too. I think she's going to put some of this on him, and I think rightfully so she'll be stressed because she's going to be injured.
Are you saying that she's going to blame Jimmy for this or feel
I don't know if she's going to directly blame him, but I think somewhere along the lines, it's if you weren't a fuck up, if I didn't have to pick up slack for you, somewhere in those ways, it's I wouldn't have taken this extra job, I wouldn't have pushed myself so far and not slept, I wouldn't, none of this would have happened.
That's not directly his fault, though.
No, I agree, but
in typical MacGuffin fashion, before she got into the car, he showed up with a solution to that entire problem.
Yeah.
She was too busy dealing with a client and doing her job.
Is it a solution? Yeah, they get a payday, and that still may not happen immediately, even if she does accept the settle offer. And for all we know, it may not still happen too with this show. She could go in and go, I'm ready to accept, and Howard can end up talking her out of it or something, where Jimmy's already celebrated, but it's still relatively it's enough money that it would never be a problem again. Shout out to Raphael in the chat again. It was $17.4 million, so Jimmy would get
about one. He said 1.1, but I think he has 20% of that pot. I think he has 20% of what the lawyers will make. The math, 1.1 million.
I took Outer 4 times, so I'm not gonna touch that.
I would not blame you.
It's money. It's big money.
In amount.
Large
That's
numbers.
how much I have.
Many commas.
But I hope we don't get Kim lashing out against Jimmy. If anything, I feel like we should get Kim being apologetic to Jimmy in that moment.
I don't think that's gonna happen, especially not after their last interaction. Like, I get,
but then
I get that he
doesn't make her look like that interaction makes neither of them look great. But it makes her look a little worse that he's...
No, he's being an asshole.
Really?
Yes, he's there with some money, and it's great, but, like, it's also...
I mean, you also have to look at... you need to stop, but whereas she literally... She should have pressed it.
You have to look at the bigger picture, too, in terms of, like, what are they doing, right? Kim is working her ass off, not sleeping, working real, legitimate work, whereas Jimmy is just eking by... looking for a crack to take advantage of someone. He didn't do any work now to get this money other than, ruining this lady's relationship with her home.
By a Saul Goodman standard, he did a lot of work. He didn't do any lawyer work.
The level of work here is not the same, right? So, yes, he's coming in with a bunch of money, but you have to think about how invested Kim is in this, okay? It's just so selfish of him, the way that he acted, and to even, to just not be to be oblivious to how hard she's working and how tired she is and how, disheveled she is. There's no way that she apologizes to him.
We'll agree to disagree. I think
we'll see.
I think they were both. I think they both handled each other poorly in that scene.
Yeah,
but
I agree.
I think they both share equal burden of guilt.
I'm on Team Kim.
Jack Turner in the chat. She is not picking up any slack on Jimmy's behalf. If anyone would be indirectly blamed, it should be Kim's client, who put more on her plate than she needed. I mean, she took the client.
Yeah, the client doesn't.
She took the client, but I do see the argument. The client giving her a 2-week, the client waiting to see her in person to give her a 2-week timeline seems a little rough.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I think that they mentioned her because she pulled off that pseudo miracle for her other client. So I think that's why they were like, oh, we need a miracle, and they're like, oh, I know just the guy or gal, and they kind of recommended her name. Yeah, I mean, I don't think any of it's Jimmy's fault. When I say this, I'm speaking from Kim's perspective. I don't think that it's on Kim to pick up any of Jimmy's slack. I think that Jimmy is gonna figure out a way, one way or another. But I think from what I have seen of Kim, I think the way she views it is that she's doing it because she has to pick up slack. Otherwise, I don't know why she's doing it. Because she's making for herself, she's making money off Mesa Verde. She's already worked a lot. She's working very hard. She's keeping busy. She's doing, more or less what she wants to do as her own practice. I don't see another reason why she takes on this extra client outside of trying to pick up some slack to cover for Jimmy.
Jack Turner in the chat. Jimmy is keeping up his end of the bargain. Kim knows Jimmy and doesn't truly want to know where the rent money's coming from. Super Curio in the chat. I don't feel bad for the old lady because she's entitled to thousands of dollars when she'd get nothing if it weren't for Jimmy discovering Sandpiper's overcharging.
That's true too. But is it still his place to manipulate people like that? I don't know. I mean, I definitely get that. I
think this is still.
He's gonna get the money either way.
I think in this after show, we're gonna start saying a Jimmy move or a Saul move. I think Sandpiper is still very much a Jimmy move. Everything Sandpiper is still very much a Jimmy move. He had an element of Saul with the.
I don't know, man. It's hard to say because even from the beginning, yes, he's helping the old people that are being taken advantage of, but it's also a paycheck for him, too. He knows he's going to be getting paid. He knows he's going to be making a large sum of money, especially when they make it the large class action suit that they do. So I don't know about that.
Yeah, I think it's weird. I'm on team Kim. I'm on team Kim for the whole crash, the scene right before the crash scene. And I'm on Team Jimmy for the Sandpiper Crossing agreement, and then you're the inverse.
I don't know. I'm on. Yes.
You're on team.
I'm on team conflicted.
Team
Because
conflicted.
lots of feelings.
But judging from the chat, and I'm sure judging from the boards we'll read all week, I feel that's the point.
Yeah, I like
that. Everyone's gonna land on.
I think we've gotten a good perspective of everyone's kind of motivations and why they're doing what they're doing. And to bring it back to what we were talking about earlier, an episode like this makes the episodes before it that felt kind of meh much more rewarding.
Yes.
Where like now, if I were to go back, I think I would get more value out of those because of seeing where they go, and seeing it now, it's like, okay, now I understand why we had to see this, why we saw this, and what it means, and when you get here, you're able to formulate that opinion because you have some type of like a background perspective.
So, we've been talking about the past. It's predictions time. We're about to get into the future.
That was so smooth.
Wasn't it, though?
And now, your AfterBuzz TV predictions.
All right, before we get into predictions at large, Hector Salamanca, this time next week, in a wheelchair or not in a or headed towards a wheelchair or not in a wheelchair, or like in a hospital bed, like.
I have no idea, man. I think something.
I know.
I have no idea.
I know. Like,
I think something could happen. I think part of me thinks that something's going to happen to him, but it's going to be separate from whatever puts him in a wheelchair later. And part of me thinks that it's not, and that we're just going to see him in, with the bell and stuff by the end of the episode or something. So I don't know.
I would not be shocked if we get a double red herring.
I'm hoping that we
get a double red herring this season, that the ibuprofen pills were a red herring, and then he gets into a fight with the dad at the upholstery shop, and that's where we end it.
Or he doesn't get in a fight,
and it's a second red herring.
He walks out of the shop and just gets hit by a bus. Just a completely random bus, and the film students from the college get out, and they're shooting a commercial for Nacho's dad's place. That's my prediction.
I feel like all of that will happen.
If that did happen, I would have a heart attack. I'd go full Hector.
This video would go huge.
It would be very viral.
We would be tweeting.
That's right.
But like,
You
guy
heard
at
it here
AfterBuzz
first.
TV called it by the page.
That's yeah, I don't know, man. I want to make predictions, but I just feel like it's so.
Yeah.
Like they know where they're going, and I'm just like along for the ride. I'm excited to see Mike though. I'm very confident we're gonna get some action, some good.
We're definitely gonna get some explosions,
some Mike,
some actions,
badassness.
Mozzie Ivor won in the chat. I think Nacho's dad is going to go to the cops, then get shot for it. I think Hector will be in a wheelchair, making everything Nacho did for nothing. We still don't know.
I could see that happening too.
We still don't know if Nacho's plan will lead to a heart attack, which will then lead to a paralysis that leads Hector to a wheelchair. Like that path is still there. We just don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if it'll be for nothing. I definitely think something will happen, but I could definitely see Nacho's dad dying either way, especially with his response to Nacho. It doesn't seem like he's gonna like just suck it up and go along with it.
Gatlin Oil, do they drop Kim? Because he needs another lawyer to do that same plan. He only has 2 weeks.
I'm curious to see what happens. I mean, it's not like she was just so late that like she missed the meeting. Like she got into a car accident. So,
we can see from the preview she's going to be in the hospital. Like she might not be able to handle Mesa Verde now, so that might be a huge Mesa Verde might have to drop her because the only people in the building are Francesca and Jimmy, neither of whom are lawyers.
They may have to. She may have to refer them to somebody else or something to get it covered. That's a good point. And
then one last question before predictions.
At least they have the money though. They have. Well, theoretically, whenever that comes in.
They have theoretical money.
So
they have theoretical money that could float them if both Mesa Verde and Gatlin Oil drop them. Chuck and Howard, we see a preview where they're about to shake hands and make an agreement. Where do we see this agreement with them and HHM?
I don't know if that's going to happen. I think that might be a red herring, especially since we saw it in the preview. But what I got from that is it looks like they had a meeting already, and that was like the end of the meeting. I think maybe Howard, again, throws some weight around or a thread or something that's like, look, well, we can do all this, whatever. Or, you know, you can just shake my hand. We can, you know, let bygones be bygones and be normal. So, I don't know. I'm definitely excited, though. I'm really, really enjoying the Howard Chuck clash because it feels like it's been a long time coming. It's been building. We've seen Howard like stay quiet and stay by the side for a long time. So I'm looking forward to more of that for sure.
Do you have any predictions at large?
No, I mean, I definitely think something's going to happen with Kim and Jimmy's relationship by the end of the season. And I'm curious if we're going to get... I want to know more about Mike and his daughter, if any of that comes into it, and the stuff with Anita. We still don't really know, like, what does that mean?
There was some talk of that in the chat, that the timeline seems fishy, that body last week was Anita's husband. That it's because the timeline is pretty clear that it's the guys from the truck, and then he found the body and then he got them in trouble. Maybe that's what he did for Gus, or part of what he did for Gus. I'll just go out on a limb, and I think Mike somehow puts Hector in the wheelchair, but in a way where it's not in front of anybody else, where that Nacho can still think that it was the pills. Like,
I think there's going to be some type of scenario where it benefits Gus to have Hector alive, but to not have him be able to be a force of opposition. So that's what scenario that ends him up in the wheelchair. What that is, I have no idea.
I also agree.
I could see Gus being that way of like, well, I'm not going to kill you because I still kind of need you, but I need you to stop being a thorn in my side. So,
I also see the strain. Of this week, particularly breaking up Kim and Jimmy, but I also see Kim not being in the office that much, so Jimmy taking over the office with Francesca. But he's not a lawyer yet.
Yeah, what's he gonna do in the office?
I don't know. I have not figured that part out, but I think there's something there that Jimmy's gonna kind of take over that office, and that's gonna be extra strain. That's gonna lead to Kim wanting to break it off with him, both professionally and personally. Do we have anything else? I think we're good.
No.
We talked about all the things.
We did.
If people wanted to continue to talk to you about all the things, where can they find you on Twitter?
They could find me on Twitter at DogLikeNate. That's with 2 G's. I am on all social media like that. And also, next week I'll be hosting the season finale as well as this show.
Yes.
But also Silicon Valley.
You're double heading next week.
That's right. Double finales.
Let's
be a finale fiesta.
And I've been your host, Steve Kaufmann. You can find me on Twitter at Steve Kaufmann. That is Kaufmann. And that's where you're going to have to follow me, because this week I'm starting a vlog. I turned 31 on June 1st of this month. Thank you so much for that.
You're welcome.
And I've decided that from June 1st to June 1st, I will not have a drop of liquor. And I'm doing 52 vlogs where I talk about it. I shot the first one. I'm going to edit it tonight. I'm going to tweet about it. I'm going to tweet the link when I have it. It's going to be a channel. I'm going to base a channel where I just kind of talk in front of a white screen in my bedroom. Just because I talk all the time anyway. But
mine as well.
It'll be my journey. If you are at all interested in seeing... This week's not that bad, but I feel like week 5 I'm going to struggle. I feel people might enjoy that
Struggle
too.
is probably very entertaining.
It probably will be, but that's where you guys can find it. Thank you guys, and good night.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.